Hello, this is Dr. Dawn Michael, and today we're going to have a very interesting discussion on ejaculatory control. And I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to go over a couple of the questions that I have been given over email. And of course, you can find me at thehappyspouse.com. If you want to have one of your questions answered live, you can leave it in the contact box or my email is located there. If you have a personal question, I do have a small fee that I charge, and that's also located there. And I've answered many of your questions, and so that seems to be working out very well for a lot of you. I'm just going to adjust my screen a little bit here. And then I also want to say, for the people that have been joining me on live for the past several weeks, I was not here last week. I happened to be on vacation, and so I'm back. And I just had a quick story before I jump into this very interesting topic. I went to Utah for about 10 days, and I drove throughout the entire state. It was really beautiful. In one part, it was snowing. One part, it was warmer. And if anybody has been to Utah, you'll know that there's kind of a stretch between each little town, and there's little towns situated all over the place. So I was driving from one of these little towns to another little town. It's about a 3-hour distance on a two-way highway. And I noticed that I did not have cell reception. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, God, this would be a really crappy place to break down. Well, in that moment, all of a sudden, my car broke down. And so I was located on a 2-lane highway. The next town was about, I'd say, 2 hours away. And the town we had come from was 2 hours away. So, and I had no phone reception. And so my husband quickly pulled to the side of the road. Thank God we made it to the side of the road, because we couldn't even get our car into neutral. It was literally stuck. We have a diesel engine, and we found out later that certain parts of it had exploded inside. But why I'm telling you this story is I'm from Southern California, and people here in Southern California just kind of go about their business. And if you break down on the side of the road, not too many people are going to help you. And if they do, you might be a little nervous. But in Utah, on this road, we had every single person that came by stopped. They offered to go down the road, which was maybe 15, 20 miles away, and call for a tow truck. So we had 2 people do that. We had one man, he was so sweet. He offered to take us into town 45 minutes out of his way. He actually came back to check on us. Lastly, I guess a police officer had been called by one of the people had stopped and told him that we were in the middle of this 2-way highway. So he came racing an hour away to come help us. And he ended up staying with us for 2 hours. It took 2 hours to actually get a tow truck, but he stayed with us. Other people stopped by. And I just want to say, all in all, it turned out to be a really kind of interesting experience, just to show you that, there's still humanity out there. There's still these wonderful Americans that want to stop and help you. And we finally got on the tow truck, and we got towed back 2 hours from where we had come from. We finally found a dealership. So my car's still in Utah being fixed. Hopefully they'll be able to transport it back here. But it was one of those interesting experiences. You never think it's going to happen to you, but I was so happy that it happened in a place where the people were just so kind. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you before we jump into this topic. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience. And by the way, Utah is beautiful. Again, we had one area where it was snowing, and another area in Torrey where it had beautiful red rocks, and we were able to go hiking, and it was just It was really great. So that's why I was not here last week. All right, so let me get into this topic, and then I'll go ahead and look at some of your questions. And let me just say a quick hello to all of you out there. And if you want to just say where you're from, I always like to know where everyone's from. But hello to Vaping, glad you're back. Nice to see you here again. Hi, John from Ireland. Hello, Michael from England. David in Indiana. And John, still beautiful people out there. God bless them. Thank you all for joining in. Yes, those are lovely words. And I'm happy that you're here. So we're going to go over this topic. And one of the most frustrating things for men that have this is that it really does affect their love lives and their relationships. Now, for some men, it can create such a problem that they don't get into a long-term relationship. And for other men, they're in a relationship and they may not have had this problem, but it can develop. But for the most part, it usually happens when someone is younger and they kind of develop this over time. So this is ejaculatory control. And it's estimated that about 1/3 of American men suffer from control of their ejaculation, and this affects millions of men at some point in their lives. So this is the question, and I will go ahead and give you some background on it, some reasons why it happens, and some things that you can do about it. Okay. So this is one of your questions. I don't know who sent it. It was an anonymous question. And this is from a man. You know, women can also have issues too, but because men, their male genitals are front and center, there's a lot more anxiety attached to it. And also because you can feel when a man has an orgasm and it's more obvious for reasons, as we all know. Men seem to have more of an issue with this than women do. But women can still have problems with orgasm and so on and so forth. So the question is, I often come before my partner and it is negatively affecting our sex life. Do you have any suggestions that might be helpful? So let's first define what it is. So it could be called premature ejaculation or rapid ejaculation. And we would define it as upon intercourse. So it would be, you'd be into the penetration about 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're not able to control having, I don't want to say an orgasm because men actually can orgasm without ejaculation. That's another topic. But you rapidly ejaculate and you really just have no control over it. And men will describe it as they get to the point of no return, where they've already had the orgasm and then they ejaculate afterwards. So I'm going to give you some solutions, but I'm going to read from the book. And if you've ever watched my videos before, I oftentimes will refer to the New Male Sexuality. It's such a wonderful book and it has so much information in there. It is a little bit older of a book, so I'll add in some updated information as I'm reading it to you. But I will go through some of the information here. And then, as I said, I will take some of your questions. Okay. All right. So developing better ejaculatory control involves learning 2 skills. One is the ability to attend more fully to your own sensation of arousal and tension. The other is the ability to make changes in your behavior that will prevent delayed ejaculation. So this is a big issue. It's usually a learned behavior. So if you can think back to, if this is a problem that you have, to when you first discovered yourself. And that's usually when you are after puberty. And a lot of times you'll be masturbating and you don't want to be caught. So you'll hurry up and you'll get the job done. And you'll continue this pattern throughout your life. So you're basically rushing yourself and your body gets used to this pattern. Now, some men, they don't rush, or some men that do rush when they're younger, they learn to slow down. They learn to connect the mind with the body. And so they don't have this problem. Another issue is that if you've taught yourself this pattern, and then you are in a situation with a woman where you want to have intercourse, and let's say the first time you ejaculate rapidly, sometimes that can create anxiety. And that anxiety can also trigger rapid ejaculation, just because you've put yourself in an anxious situation. Okay, let me go to the next page on this. So let's get back to the arousal and the tension, because as I said in the beginning, you will get to the point of no return. So once you're at the point of no return, then it's over. So you have to be able to pull back from that tension or that intense arousal, and that's learned. That's a learned behavior. So once you know your body better, and you can figure out where you're at that point, then there's certain exercises that you can do to slow down that intense feeling of arousal. And I will get to some of that in a minute. Okay, so let me read this part for you. Arousal becomes the point of no return. It's before this point is reached that you need to do something to control the ejaculation. Men who have good control have learned that control, usually without knowing they learned anything. And all of us, whether we have ejaculatory control or not, have learned to control other reflexes. Urination is perhaps the closest parallel. At some point when you were very young, your parents let you know that it was no longer acceptable to urinate in your pants. You gradually learn to recognize the sensations in your body signaling that you were about to urinate. And you could tell someone that you had to get to the toilet. So basically what they're talking about here is the PC muscle. So that's another part of it, is being able to build up your PC muscle and have control of that, and also for your brain to understand that. Because what happens as you get older and you have the sexual pattern, you're not in control of the release anymore. It's kind of like it just happens. And so you have to back up a little bit, and you have to know what that sensation is and kind of relearn your body before it happens. So I'm going to stop for a minute here, look at some of your questions, and then I will continue to read. So let's see. So we have one here from JDEP. How to get rid of PE occur due to masturbation habits. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but part of the way to cure the rapid ejaculation is also to change your behavior and train yourself to get to know your body. So you're not just masturbating to a video, or you're not just masturbating to something, you actually are feeling the sensation. So you're knowing what it feels like right before you're about ready to lose control. So you would stop touching yourself. You would allow yourself to go flaccid, and then you would allow yourself to get an erection again and start to understand that mind-body connection. And breathing techniques are very important too, because what happens if you start to get anxious, you also could just have rapid ejaculation. So you have to learn how to do some deep breathing, calm your nerves down, And that's another part of some of the exercises that can help. I'm going to go into right now one of the most important ways for you to control this if this is your problem. Okay, so it's called Mind Power for Developing Better Control. And I'm going to read this section and then I will tell you more about it because it's very helpful. All right. Oh, one more thing before I jump into this. For some of you who've gone through the exercises, the conditioning your mind, the behavioral stuff, there's some people that have developed such a bad case of rapid ejaculation and they've tried all of these things that there is one medical thing that can help, but it does have some side effects, and that is there's certain antidepressant medication where it can delay orgasm, and for some men it does help, but also taking medication has side effects too. So if you're in that situation, or if you've tried all these other things that I'm going to talk about and they still don't work, there is the option of talking to your doctor about some type of antidepressant medication. But I always think it's better to try everything natural first beforehand. Because again, you know, you do have to deal with the side effects of that. But that is still a treatment that some people use. Another thing too is also using a condom will help with it being so sensitizing. But again, the mind control and how you train your brain is super important. So let's go through the mind power. A man who hasn't had ejaculatory control tends to think of himself as a quick on the trigger. This is for sure a reflection of reality, but it has also become a predictor of future behavior and a reinforcer of self-image you want to change. It will be easier to change your behavior if you also change your view of yourself. This is such an important concept, and this is not just with sexual problems, but this is with anything in life. It's how you view yourself. So if you're constantly putting yourself down, if you're constantly saying, I have this problem, you are almost creating a future reality for yourself where you will continue to have this problem. So one of the most important things is to visualize that you don't have this problem. So begin to use a fantasy where you see yourself not having this problem. And that's a very powerful way to change some of your behavior. I'm going to read a little bit more about this. So you can start right away to apply the material, which I'm talking about. Imagine yourself as you'd like to be. Spend as little time as possible imagining how you've been. So all the negative things that happen in the past that you're bringing to the present will once again happen in the future. And we do this with all aspects of our life, is we bring out certain things from the past that are negative, we bring them to the present, and then that predicts how it's going to be in the future. So it's so important that you paint a different picture of how you see yourself in the future, and how you think of yourself better, how you build yourself up, and continue to have this thought or these feelings. So mind power. When you're aware of telling yourself that you come fast or having an image that embodies that idea, argue with it and change it. For example, it's true, I've always come fast, but I'm going to do this reprogramming and change it. I'm going to have good control. When you picture yourself coming quickly, say, that was then, and follow with an image of having lasting, long-lasting sex accompanied by words like, that's the way it's going to be from now on. This is an image, really more like a movie, that you should spend 30 to 90 seconds on every day. Doing it several times a day is even better. Imagine yourself having long-lasting intercourse with good control. So again, you're doing a behavioral programming. So you're basically reprogramming yourself, but it does take some effort and commitment and time. But every day you're reprogramming the negative thinking into something positive and imagining yourself being in control. Now, one of the great things is when you do this, it actually will reduce some of the anxiety that you have. And you're also, again, painting yourself in a good picture so that moving forward, you see yourself as somebody who is in control. Okay. One other aspect, and something that really helps that I just brought up, is some deep breathing. So proper breathing can help develop ejaculatory control. Put simply, taking a few deep breaths can help dissipate the arousal tension that leads to quick ejaculation. So once again, breathing deeply, calming your central nervous system down. One of the things that they used to say is think about something that turns you off. And I think that is some old advice. I never say that to anyone because right there, you're conditioning yourself with something negative and you don't ever want to turn yourself off. You just want to be more in touch with your body and understand, again, the point of no return. So don't use that old saying of, oh, I'm going to think of something and then it's going to turn me off. Another technique that men sometimes can do if they're going to be in a sexual situation, and this is where working with couples, a husband and wife or partners, you can actually work with them saying the man is going to masturbate the day before, knowing that he's going to have sex the next day. So actually having a date when you know you're going to have sex with your spouse can be helpful so that you can plan to masturbate the night before or that morning. And then sometimes that helps so that when you get into the situation, you're not as eager, you're not as aroused, and you have a little bit more control. So that's where working with your spouse can really benefit people that have this problem. Okay, let me take a quick break here. I will look through some of the questions and then I will go over a little more information. So vaping asks, any tips on how to stop masturbating as much? It's hard for me not to do it daily. You see, that's one of the things that I was just saying. You just put in your mind, it's hard for me not to do it daily. So this is where you have to kind of change the way you think and say, no, I am in control and I'm not going to do it daily if I don't want to do it daily. I've made up my mind that I'm going to do it every other day and say I'm in control of it. I've decided to replace it with something else like maybe exercise or doing something creative and being positive about what you want to do, because ultimately we're in control of very few things in the world outside of us. But what we are in control of is how we deal with our thoughts and how we react to things and our actions. And so we have control of all of those things. Now, sometimes you'll get aroused and you'll get an arousing thought in your mind. So you may not have chosen to have that thought enter your mind, but you do have the choice on how you're going to react to that thought. Are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to put your energy or your attention into something else? So that is completely in your control. And training yourself to do that is really important because if you take responsibility for the fact that you do have control about what you say, about how you react to your thoughts, and how your reactions are, then you will put yourself in a better frame of mind rather than it has control over me, kind of the victim mentality, which it's really easy to get that in society because it feels like everything is the victim mentality. You know, everything's out of control. We have no control over anything. Again, we may not have control over the world or surroundings, but we always have control over our own reality, so to speak. So how we see ourselves in the world, how we act in the world, how we respond to things in the world, how we process a thought that comes into our mind. We all have the ability to control that, and we have the ability to change a negative into a positive. And so even with this problem of premature ejaculation, it's the same thing, that you may feel like you don't have control over it, and you may see yourself as embodying that problem. And what I'm trying to say to you is for you to step out of that and envision yourself being in control, envision yourself how you would want it to be, and play that out in your mind over and over again every day, so you start to condition yourself in a different way. And not just with sexual things. This has to do with anything in your life. But if the sexual problem is really, causing havoc in your life, you do want to do something about it, because allowing this problem to make it so that you don't have a relationship with a woman, or that it's ruining your sex life with your spouse, it's very frustrating, and it can be very painful, and it can be very embarrassing. And so all of those things can affect somebody mentally, how they feel about themselves, how they view themselves, not just in the bedroom, but in life in general. And so it's really important to view yourself in a different way and create a new reality where you do have control, where you do feel better. And everybody is capable of doing that. Okay, let me read a couple more of your questions here. Okay. If I obtain from ejaculation during a month, can this produce health problems? So I'm not one for recommending that people, sorry, I gotta take a sip of water. The question was refraining from masturbation for a month. I mean, everybody's different. If it works for somebody, then I'm not going to say don't do it. But as far as from a health perspective, it's normal for a person to masturbate or ejaculate. And in fact, sometimes if your body isn't doing it with you touching yourself, you will have nighttime emissions anyway. And so even if you think that you're not going to be ejaculating for a whole month, your body may do it on its own, especially if you're a person who was regularly masturbating and ejaculating on a daily basis. To go from that to absolutely nothing, your body sometimes will do it anyway. And it can reduce arousal, but it also can mess with your hormones. It can sometimes make people feel depressed. I'm just talking about over a long period of time. Other people have been able to utilize, like in sports or something, let's say that you're trying to hold on to that energy, because there is an energy that stays in your body, and when you release it, you're kind of releasing tension. Okay, so you're releasing a tension. If you know how to use that tension in a positive way that motivates you and you're not releasing it, then some people have trained themselves to be able to do that. So that's like a long process. But most people just cutting off masturbating or having their regular pattern of release, you can slow it down and do it every other day or every third day or every fourth day, but just completely shutting it off, sometimes it can create other problems. So, but each person has to try it for themselves. Let's see. Michael Shaw asks, are male chastity devices safe to use? So that's more of like, the male chastity is more of like a sex play thing. And, for some men, if you don't know what male chastity is, you'll have to look it up. But I've had other videos where I talked about it. So it's more of, okay, how it's advertised is, lock your man up with this so he won't go out and cheat on you, which has absolutely nothing to do with the real psychology behind male chastity. And it's usually the man who wants his woman to control him or have control over him. And it's more of a psychological thing than rather it being what it's advertised. So can male chastity devices be safe? Well, most of the devices out there are, it depends on what your size is. So you don't want to get something that's too small depending on your size, because you don't want it to cause chafing or to hurt you. So I would keep that in mind. Men that have worn it overnight or for long periods of time, they've gotten rashes. So that's not really a good thing. And a couple of times they've given the key to women. So there's a whole other aspect with that where they've had to manually get out of it. And that hasn't been a good situation. So if you're going to do any play like that, you've got to be careful who you're giving the key to. As far as in a relationship with the spouse, if the two of you are using that just to play around with the submission, domination aspect of it, there's, it's not really harmful as long as it's not hurting you. I wouldn't recommend men using it for long periods of time though. And sometimes it can, how do I put this? Sometimes men will use it and they will get so excited over it or so dependent on it that it takes over certain aspects of their lives. So instead of it just being something fun that they use to get aroused, they become obsessed with it and obsessed with finding someone to hold the key or obsessed with the whole idea of it. And so that can be unbalanced and that could create a problem in some men's lives. So I do have a couple videos on that if you want to watch it. And so, okay, hopefully I answered that question. Adrian asks, masturbation without porn is normal. Yeah, I mean, masturbation is normal. I mean, most people throughout their lives masturbate, and you're not going to get a disease from it. You're not going to get anyone pregnant. You're not hurting yourself or someone else. Obviously, everything is balanced in life. If you're overly doing it or you're doing it not just to get to know your body better or maybe have like a normal sex release, if you're doing it as constantly your go-to because you're stressed and you haven't found another way to de-stress, like exercise or a hobby or something else, that can create a problem. So you just want to be aware that you're always in balance and you're doing it in a way that's healthy and not hurting yourself or not hurting your relationship. Because if you're masturbating all the time and then your spouse wants to be intimate with you and you're not able to have an orgasm because you've been masturbating all the time, that now creates a problem in your relationship. So again, you just want to be aware of something like that. So let me go through here real quick. If you have any more questions, or if you want to tell me where you're from, that would be great. All right. Okay, from Missouri. Vaping said you're from Missouri. Let me see. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Michael. All right. Well, no, I really appreciate it when you guys all come on here, and I really do hope that this has helped some of you. And I know from the emails I've been getting that there's lots of questions that you have out there, and I'm going to try to continue to answer them. And also you can put down your questions here at the live chat. Let me go over a few more things before I end. If you have any more questions, if you can put them out in the next 5 minutes, that would be great. And again, thank you, Michael, for the super chat. So I'm going to show you this book one more time. And you can still get it on Amazon. And there's other important things inside of this book. Now, I do have one video out that talks about how to train yourself to not ejaculate quickly. So there are some great exercises in there, and there's some things that you can do. But one of the most important things, I'm going to go back to that again, is mentally. Seeing yourself as being mentally capable of being a great lover, and really concentrating on what that would look like to you. And that's really important. That's a really important aspect of it. And getting to know your body. You know, it's not all about rushing to orgasm. And that's where some men run into this problem too, is they're rushing to climax and they're kind of missing everything in between. The feelings, the connection, the breathing, the sensation. And that can make it so when you have intercourse, you're going to ejaculate quickly because, again, you set yourself up for that pattern. Another thing that you can do is find out different sensations that turn you on, or that if you get aroused easily with a particular way of masturbating, you may want to change it up. So one of the other exercises that I always tell men, and women too, quite frankly, because both men and women have this problem. If you're not in a relationship and you're used to masturbating one way, that way is how you're usually going to have your orgasm, even when you're with somebody. And so I brought this up before about women who are using toys when they're masturbating by themselves. They're going to have a harder time having an orgasm when they're with their spouse or in a relationship. The same thing can happen with men. If they're used to masturbating and stimulating themselves one way, they're basically training themselves to have an orgasm that way. So you're going to want to change that up and learn the sensation, slow it down, take your time, do your breathing, and so on and so forth. Okay, one more question, and then I'm going to go today. So I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name right. Hanif says, I'm 20. Is it normal? I ejaculate fast. It is more normal for somebody who's younger to ejaculate faster. In fact, as men get older, that's one of the positive things about getting older for men who may have had this problem in their 20s. They usually don't ejaculate quite as fast. But if you want to listen to the whole program from the beginning, you'll see that there are ways that you can slow it down and things that you can do. And again, I will post my other video in the comment box, so you can link to that one, which really shows you how to go through it and slow everything down. All right, everyone, I hope you have enjoyed this show. I certainly enjoy your questions. And I will be back next Tuesday at the same time. And if you want to, again, send me a question, go to my website, thehappyspouse.com, and you can do an anonymous one to be answered on the show, or again, you can leave comments under this video. As you know, I believe everyone deserves to have a healthy sex life, and so do you. Make it a fantastic day.